Hey guys, well here's your video on how to replace a server warmer thermostat. It's going to include the DI2 and the DI3 as well as any fudge, cheese, and chili warmers. So here you go. It's going to go over cleaning, what you're going to see in the different models, and how to fix it, how to calibrate it. Have a good time.
But what we're going to do today is we're going to change out the thermostat here, which is usually the problem 90% of the time. So usually the heat element is fine. They're pretty resilient and they stand up, but the thermostat is often what goes out. And we can buy kits that include a new thermostat, an Allen wrench for calibrating it, and instructions. The things that you'll need is just a set of pliers and either a Phillips head or flathead screwdriver. And all the while we want to make sure that we're keeping track of these screws. So we'll go ahead and all of these are set up a little differently. Some of them have a screw up top and a screw down below, and you unscrew those. This one appears to have two screws right here that hold this box together. Everything is pretty resilient, so you don't need to worry about bending anything or hitting any wires, cutting any wires. Usually what you're doing here won't damage any parts that aren't already damaged too much. So we'll take these two screws off, set them to the side, and we'll see how this attaches. Usually you won't need to remove the heat element. You can keep the heat element in place. If you had to remove it for cleaning purposes, or if we just couldn't get this off without removing it, there are these little tabs that you can bend out. They're just wrapped around the heat element, and then the whole heat element will come out. I don't recommend undoing these unless you have to. Oftentimes you will need to in order to clean. You should be able to get a bar towel and get in there and clean this unit. Oftentimes if there's a spill in here and product gets on the heat element, such as right here, it'll burn onto the heat element. One of the issues that we have is that we have chocolate, and chocolate has acid in it, and is very acidic, I should say, and the acidity really eats up these heat elements. I haven't seen one where it's eaten it up so much that we've had to toss it, but it's just something to keep in mind. The more that chocolate sits on there, the harder it is to get off. So going back to this system, so I've taken out the two screws. When this box pulled out after the two screws, the thermostat knob just came right off. It just pulled straight out. And we'll take a look here. And as I said, this is pretty resilient, so usually you can kind of bend. This is a little difficult, but you can bend it out so that you can access everything. And this is the thermostat right here. We've got the lead wires coming in. Sometimes you'll need to do a cord repair. I'll go over that a little bit later on another video, but this cord looks like it's in good condition. It's wrapped around. I don't see any places where it's shorted. Shorted means that the neutral and the hot have touched in some way or grounded out, and what you'd see is a black spot somewhere where it's burned, where the wire's connected, where the wire's been burned through. This looks fine. There are little insulators on the end of each of the element. So one end of the element, the other end of the element. Those oftentimes get burned off as they get old. That's okay as long as the two ends, the end of this side of the element and the end of this side of the element, aren't touching. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the thermostat here, and remove it and replace it. The thermostat is held onto this box. There's a nut on this side that's attached to a screw that goes all the way through the box to right here in the center. This screw appears to be a screw for the ground wire, so it comes through and it just screws onto this box to ground the whole unit. There's no need to touch that screw, and you can see that from the inside of the box. You can see that that the green wire is ground, and it goes and it's screwed. It's on a nut and screwed onto the box, so no need to touch that. We're just going to be working on the thermostat. And the thermostat, so there will be two wires going to it. They're both black. Doesn't matter which one goes to which place on the thermostat. Unscrew this top one, and it feels like the nut on the other side is turning, so I will hold the nut in place with my pliers and unscrew from the other side. And all the while, you're of course doing this with the unit unplugged. So there's a nut, it's got a little lock washer on the inside of it. So we'll set that to the side. Again, it's about a 1 1/4 inch stainless steel screw. And we're taking a look at the thermostat. And we'll just go ahead and unplug it. So we got these two black wires, like I said, attached to it. And they are, if you can see, you've got one connection, a second connection, and then this tab right here that holds the thermostat in place. This is acting as the ground for the thermostat. So we'll unplug that wire, unplug that. So we've got our thermostat here, and in looking at it to see if there's something wrong with it, I brought a couple thermostats to show just in case we couldn't find what the problem was with this. And I don't really see a problem with this, but that doesn't mean that we can't that there's not something wrong with it. A lot of times what will happen, here's a thermostat that I brought that doesn't work, and if we set these side by side, what you can see is that this has this little spacer piece, and this one is missing that little spacer piece. So we've got spacer piece, and this one's missing a spacer piece. In this case, this one stopped working because this little resistance wasn't there, which needed to be there. So in this case, that's why this wasn't working. In this case, for this, I'm not sure why it's not working. It could be that there's just a bad contact in there, or there's a broken piece that I just can't see. So we'll replace it anyway. I have a brand new one here, and the only difference between this one and the old one is that these are turned . This is the old one, and as you can see, they're like Mickey Mouse ears, the connectors are, and on this one there's a straight one, and then it's got the right side Mickey Mouse ear. So this one has the tab, the grounding tab, like before, so we'll put it back exactly the same way that we took the old one out. So we've got that in place. We'll put the screw back through, and then through the thermostat, and the lock washer, and then the nut. Now we'll tighten it a little bit more. So now we've got it back in, the thermostat back in. We can bend the box back up. We've inspected everything, put it back exactly the same way that it came out. We don't want. So we'll put the knob back on at the same time. Actually, you know what? We're going to hold off on the knob because we're going to calibrate this. All of these it's possible to calibrate them. And in your instruction manual, the whole back side is about calibrating the knob. And what you need to do in order to do that is you need to have a 1/16 inch Allen wrench. And these come with the kit. I lost mine. Usually they're a little bit smaller, so I have my Allen wrench. But it goes over. These instructions are on the SharePoint site under manuals. If you can't get it to calibrate, it's because the thermostat is broken. If the thermostat's broken, one of two things happens. Either one, the element doesn't heat up at all, or two, it heats up and it gets hot and it doesn't essentially turn off. It just stays as hot as possible. And now we can put the knob back on and get this box screwed back in. Now it fits on quite a bit better. If we had the long stemmed thermostats, this would be sticking out too far and there'd be a gap right there. And I think the long stemmed thermostats went to the old nacho cheese warmers, if I remember right. So putting these screws back in. Now before I did this, I ran this unit through the dishwasher. I wrapped up the cord and I ran it through the dishwasher. And then I put it in the 3-compartment sink and sprayed it out to clean it out. Had a lot of product that had spilled in there. So at this point, it's been all tightened down. We've replaced the thermostat, took the box out, we turned the new thermostat all the way down using the calibration form and the Allen wrench. And now we're going to plug it in and see if it works.